everyone. Thanks for joining today's webinar. My name is Marley Long, and I'll go ahead and get things kicked off today. We will be addressing best practices for improving SharePoint and Office 365 adoption. Just a bit of housekeeping. This webinar is being recorded, so if you want to share this with a colleague in the next few days, we'll go ahead and send an email to everyone who's signed up, and we'll be sending the recording out as well. You can also connect to us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @Cardiolog. And of course, if you have any questions, we will be leaving some time towards the end of the webinar today. And you can send your questions through the questions box within the GoToWebinar panel. And I just want to say that this is part of our webinar series that we're doing leading up to Microsoft Ignite in Atlanta, which we will be attending at the end of the month. So if you'll be there, we'll be happy to meet to show you a bit more of what we can do with analytics for SharePoint and Office 365. And we'll be at booth number 2148. And we'll also be giving away 5 GoPros as well throughout the course of the event. So if you'll be at the event and you'd like to meet, just send me a quick chat in the chat box, and we'll be happy to set up a time and a day to meet during the week. In regards to today's agenda, we'll start out with a very short introduction. We'll talk a little bit about Intlock and who we are. Then I'll jump into a presentation with some tips and best metrics that you can use to monitor SharePoint adoption and usage. So we'll be covering both our on-premises solution as well as a bit of our new product, Cardiolog Analytics on SaaS. And at the end, again, we'll try to take some Q&A, so feel free to send your questions throughout the course of the presentation. Just a brief introduction. Intlock has been around for about 11 years now, since 2005, and we're based out of Boston, Massachusetts. And over the past 11 years, we've been focused on one thing and one thing only, which is web analytics designed for SharePoint and now Office 365. Our flagship solution is Cardiolog Analytics, and it's built specifically for internal platforms, including all versions of SharePoint from 2007 to 2016, as well as SharePoint Online and Office 365. We can also track third-party tools like Yammer, Citrion, CRM tools, and the like. And the solution is available, as I mentioned, as both an on-prem and as a SaaS-based version on Power BI. Our goal is to help our customers constantly improve SharePoint based on how it's being used. So there are 3 main pillars that we talk to our customers about. So the first is to monitor, which is tracking the usage in SharePoint. The second is engaging these users, so asking them what their needs are, what their pain points are, and what's not working for them. And then finally, the most important pillar is to enhance. And we want to make sure that we're constantly improving SharePoint based on these 3 pillars. And at the end of the day, the idea is to have these actionable metrics which really allow us to constantly make SharePoint better for our users. Just to give you an idea of what our customers have been able to do with analytics, so here's a few examples. So in terms of improving portal ROI, they were able to engage with enterprise users, so increasing portal productivity. They were also able to collect these insights from portal users, and that enabled them to really drive this kind of portal collaboration. Analytics have also been used to identify user challenges. So a great example as our customers facilitating innovative survey discussions, and based on the insights that they collected from these survey discussions, they really were able to empower and improve user innovation. Another great point is enhancing portal usability. So they could, for example, identify videos viewed for 20 seconds or less, or and then identify or replace this sort of ineffective video content. Similarly, they could identify unviewed announcements or updates, and then they were able to inform site owners how to most effectively position that content for increased viewing. And the last one I'll touch on is increasing corporate productivity. So through search reports, they were able to identify failed search queries, thus saving employees time by refining failed searches. They were also able to identify how many users were accessing the portal less than 5 times per week. So then they could easily see which employees were in need of specific training. So a very common scenario that may resonate with you as well is that we get stakeholders and administrators from organizations approaching us and asking us a lot of questions, and they want to know very specific facts. And so these are the kind of questions that analytics can most certainly answer. So questions such as, how can I determine my adoption levels in the portal? How can we identify which content is not being accessed? What are most users doing in the portal? What is the most popular search? Where are my users coming from? And what's the most popular content? And so from there, we're able to, recommend these very tailored metrics and analytics reports to answer these very important portal questions. Because at the end of the day, without having these sort of vital pieces of information, organizations don't really have all the pieces of the puzzle to really understand what's going on in their portal. So, they can't necessarily know if their users are gaining value from it, if they're using it at all, if it's been helpful, and if the portal is giving them a sound return on investment. So again, with these large investments and deployments that I just mentioned, it's not just common corporate phrase to say we need to constantly measure. So it's actually essential. So I really like to start off this presentation by talking about, just going down to the very, very basics of why do we even need analytics when talking about SharePoint adoption. So the key here is really that you can only manage what you can measure. So only can we really know what's going on in SharePoint and define if the launch was successful at all, measure if people are using it, and if adoption is really increasing, is by being able to measure what's going on. And that's really the end goal that we like to help our customers with. So how can we measure the deployment, analyze it, and then help customers improve their environments based on what's going on with real data? And again, making an investment in an intranet or a migration, this includes a large amount of resources, as many of you may know, in the form of budgets for licenses and consultants, as well as human resources, and that can include multiple teams, administrators, developers, even stakeholders, as well as the migration of, very key business assets. So by leveraging analytics, you can really find out whether your portal is performing as expected and whether it's truly providing value to your organization. All right, so let's hop into a short demonstration. I'll show you a few examples of how we can really track adoption. So there's two things that I really want to emphasize here. So one, the ability to measure what's going on in SharePoint and measure SharePoint adoption and show that it's improving. And two, just as important, is actionable metrics. So at the end of the day, when you're looking at this data, if this data doesn't let you take action, then this data is essentially useless. I mean, you can have as many pretty charts and tables as you want, but at the end of the day, people care about how they can leverage SharePoint and measure adoption with the end goal of making SharePoint better for our users. So as many charts and tables as you create, if they're not allowing you to really take action, then you need to really kind of reassess your strategy. So let's go ahead. We'll open up the Cardiolog on-prem user interface. And I'll go ahead and build a dashboard from scratch with you. All right, so go ahead and create a new report. Let's create a name for this, adoption webinar. All right, and then what we'll receive is a blank report in edit mode, and it's super easy to drag and drop these metrics that I've been telling you about onto this dashboard. So I'll just click on one of these grids on my canvas here. And since we're talking about adoption, I'm only going to focus on this visitors category today. But as you can see, there's a lot more categories that we can dive into, such as page views, for example. We have a search, we have traffic sources, portal growth, we have our social, we have Yammer, as well as videos, and so forth. So let's just go ahead and jump into this visitors section. And let's go ahead and select inactive users. I'll start out with inactive users today. So very simple. Who are the folks who rarely or don't use, who aren't using SharePoint at all? So once you know who these users are, you can really take action, and you can ask them, why aren't you using the portal? And if they don't know how, well, that's very easy. So we can go ahead and put them in a very tailored training session, and in that way improve these individual user adoption rates. So that here is our first metric to help us manage these inactive users. So we'll go ahead and create another metric here. Let's talk about unique users, and we'll go into create a unique users graph, for example. And here we can see the trend over time of unique individuals. So obviously, if we're seeing this chart grow over time, more folks from the organization are leveraging SharePoint, allowing us to show management or whoever we want that over time, more employees are using and benefiting and gaining value from SharePoint. So you can also go here and quickly just show you guys, you can select the date range. So for example, I'll change the date range to last month. You can also select it by users and groups, visitors, segments, and more. You can also have a lot of options to change the appearance as well. So let's go ahead. So this was the date range of last month. So again, that's just a unique users graph, and this is a very high level kind of gives you a very high level idea of where your adoption level rates are going. So moving forward, I want to go ahead and focus on the AD user groups. So we'll go back into this category here, and we'll click this AD user groups report. Okay, so we talked about individual users, but if you have thousands or even tens of thousands of users, well, that may be a bit more difficult to manage. So we can also monitor these groups of users here, and with that, maybe we can find out if there are very specific departments in your organization that aren't adapting to the portal very well. So then we can really pinpoint these groups with more training or more sessions to understand what they need from SharePoint. And here you'll see a list that I'm showing you here of groups with all the different groups from your organization, and again, very easy to analyze what we call this actionable data here. And again, you can see here at the bottom, we have some of these laggers, so this extranet group, for example, the domain guest, external users. So then we can kind of ask ourselves, so why is that? Why are they lagging within the portal? Why aren't the extranet folks using the portal? And now you know, so okay, let's go ahead and improve that. And then we can provide very tailored training, as I mentioned, and simply target these groups. And opposed to some organizations who give their groups, departments, or regions the same amount of training, so that's a bit silly. So instead, let's spend our resources on the groups that are really lacking within SharePoint and offer them training. So let's see if this training was worthwhile. So we'll go ahead and create a unique users chart. And I want to take a look at the unique users from a specific group, for example. So let's go in specifically into this report. And let's take a look at the marketing group. We'll go ahead and add them here. So now what you will see, so this is actually all of the users specifically from the marketing group. So that's just very easy to do. And finally, I want to compare data for each user before and after our training session to see what's going on. So obviously, if there's an increase in usage after the training session, then I can go back and show that our training was actually really powerful and was helping folks. So actually, we can do this by taking a look. We'll go here and click Compare to Past Period. Go ahead and click Save. Okay. So exactly as I said before, we want to see that this change rate on the right-hand side is actually showing. It's comparing from the past period to the current period, and we want to see these green arrows, which is what we're really looking for here. I'm actually using demo data at the moment, and unfortunately it didn't populate any of those green arrows that we wanted to see, but instead we actually, so here we're seeing that we had some red arrows, so that tells us that maybe this training wasn't helpful for the users, they've been less active, so that's giving us this very insightful information that we can take forward and really provide better training for the users and really take action on this. But what we really want to see is that these green arrows showing that the unique users activity rates have gone up. So normally a few will stay the same, but that's really what we're looking for. So here, step 1 was to find out who is not using SharePoint very often, and step 2 was to provide training and then go back to make sure that the training was helpful, and that you can see here that there was this boost in adoption for the group that was originally our laggers. So I want to show you just one more metric here. So let's go into depth of visit. We have some other new metrics that I wanted to show you as well. You can see here visitor loyalty, visitor recency, length of visit. But for our purposes, let's go into depth of visit. I think this report is really interesting. So here we can see under the depth of visit in our environment, so the depth is quite shallow. So most of the users, when they open up SharePoint, they're only opening up this one page. So that's where the most visits are coming from. This is 60% of all active visits. So as usually we see folks with higher adoption rates and that have more services within SharePoint with employees utilizing it more, is that their depth of visit is much deeper and that they're browsing through more pages. So this is just really another great indicator to show the health of the current adoption levels. And the goal is to really have the depth of visit as more than 5 pages or more because you know that people are really spending time in the portal and are getting what they need. And again, each organization is obviously different and has different goals within their portal of how much time they want their users to spend. Some organizations may have different priorities in the portal. For instance, they may want their users to get in and get the right information and get out as soon as possible. So they may have different goals for depth of visit, but for a general adoption level, this is something that we would want to see. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and generate this report. So how can we get this adoption information to the right people? So if this data isn't being accessed by our site owners or our administrators, you can easily share this data with your colleagues by creating a distribution list. So you can distribute to hundreds of different site owners and have Cardiolog send it out automatically to each site owner. So he or she can see the adoption levels of their department or site. So you can send it via PDF, or another neat way is to actually send it through a web part. So you can just click here on this share button and you can see send to, export to PDF, also CSV through a distribution list, and also as a web part. And you can actually have an adoption metrics page on each site showing all of the data. And of course it's dynamic, so every day when you browse to that page, you'll see, okay, who are my top users today, who are my inactive users today, and who are the top groups, and so forth. So that's just a very quick introduction to some of the metrics that we can provide around SharePoint with the end goal of taking action to constantly measure and improving adoption. So another thing that I said I would share with you guys, so now we'll go ahead and go into our SaaS-based solution on Power BI. So this is our most recent release of Cardiolog Analytics SaaS. So this is an all-encompassing SaaS solution versus this on-prem solution which I showed you previously. So our SaaS solution is provided through the powerful Power BI data visualization interface, and it's hosted on Microsoft Azure servers. So Power BI is an analytics visualization engine developed by Microsoft. And if you're not familiar with it, it really provides a very comfortable user interface, so you can really explore your data through a free-form kind of drag and drop canvas. And it offers a broad range of options and report authoring experiences. And the reason that we decided to integrate with Power BI is to make this process as easy as possible. So you can really analyze your portal in a very easy and efficient way. You can have all your data in one place. So for example, if you're collecting data on for other aspects of your organization, you can really keep all of that very organized. You can have multiple data sets, so one from SharePoint, one from your financial information as well. And so just trying to make it as efficient as possible when using a SaaS analytics solution. So here you can see the dashboards in the report section. So those are the kind of two main sections that you'll be working on here. And specifically, Cardiolog SaaS comes with a set of pre-made reports and dashboards that we put together in a way that we think would be most beneficial for our users. So at the moment, we have around 20 pages in the reports, and we constantly add more. So when we designed the reports, we had a few things in mind. So the main purpose is to provide the data, but we wanted to take it, kind of to the next level. So instead of saying, hey, here are your page views and your users, just go out there and make decisions, we really wanted to help our users understand what they can learn from the data that we provide them. And more specifically, we wanted the reports to be built in a way that already help users know how they should measure their business and portal goals. So for that, having 11 years of experience in measuring SharePoint was very helpful. But we also spent a lot of time with our customers really trying to understand what they care about, what is defined as portal success by them as well. So together we came up with 5 portal goals, which we learned organizations are basing their SharePoint portals around and what they care most about. So the first goal was SharePoint adoption, so whether or not users are actually using SharePoint. The second was visitor engagement, so once users are in the portal, how engaged are they with the portal content and with each other? The third was collaboration, so what are users making the most out of SharePoint collaboration capabilities? The fourth was portal usability, so what's the user experience like? How easy is it for users to kind of use the portal? And the fifth was the optimization of portal resources and also supporting a migration process. So this allows organizations to save money by learning what they can get rid of and where they can spend their resources during a migration. And I just want to mention also that one of the great things about Power BI is that if you feel like these categories don't fit the needs of your organization or match your goals, or if you have unique goals, which maybe we didn't cover with our kind of out-of-the-box report that we created, it's very easy to take any piece of information that we've gathered and create your own report any way that you would like. So I just want to also say that a great report is one that tells a story. So that one that lays down all the pieces of the puzzle and really gives you a full picture of what you're trying to see. So all of these reports were designed very carefully, and they're all meant to really interact with each other and give you these kind of deeper insights. Okay, so we'll go ahead and kind of jump into these reports. So this is an overview report for adoption, which reflects your adoption levels for the entire portal. So there's a few things that you can see here. So here we have this active users report. So this is telling you the number of users, of all of your users, compared to the number of active users that you have. And it also shows you the trend over time. So let's go ahead and we'll take a look at April. So April had the lowest result. So if we click on that, we can actually see how it interacts with the rest of the report, and you can see that it's dynamic. So at the top here, you can see that 33% of the users were active during April. You can see how many new users you had or the percentage that became active. So this just shows you kind of these rough percentages, but we want to take it to the next step. And we want to know what the users are actually doing in SharePoint. So we can think of an example. Maybe an example would be, so you can see that 95% of the users are active, and that seems great. But what if I told you that they only visit SharePoint once a week and they're actually only spending a minute in the portal? So then that 95% number, maybe it's not so impressive. So that's why we actually added these other metrics here on the side. So we added also the single page visits rate. You can see the trend over time with that. We added the bounce rate, so how many visits end within 1 minute. And you can see these kind of spikes and patterns. So if something looks, there's a disturbance in any of the spikes and patterns, you can kind of go dig into this information more deeply. And all of these kind of insights really combine together to give you an idea of your overall adoption rates in the portal. And again, this is just a kind of nice holistic picture, but it's not really quite enough to get an idea of what's going on in your portal. So let's drill down a bit. Let's go into our inactive users report. So I showed you in the on-prem version as well an inactive users report, but as you can see in the SaaS-based version, it looks a bit different. So here we have inactive users, and it's showing you the exact percentage of inactive users within each department. And this report is also really nice because it allows you to kind of drill down into each user and really see their activity. And so these this group information and all of these user insights were gathered through SharePoint attributes as well as Active Directory groups. And you can select, any kind of attribute that you'd like to have appear as well. So you can definitely customize those attributes. So let's go ahead. So we see that the number of inactive users out of the total number of users in the IT department was around 20%. So let's drill down into that a bit more. And you can see again that all of the information is dynamic and reflects the number of inactive users. So you can see here the number appears at the top, the average number of visits per user, the average length of visit, and the average depth of visit. And then you can actually dive into the number of visits by user name. So you can actually focus on an individual user. So for example, let's focus on John Alcock. So then his information along with his specific picture, if you have this in your SharePoint portal, will show up here. We'll tell you his office, his department, and his job title as well. And then you can also drill down onto his specific activity. So here you can see his activity by month. And then if you want to drill down into a specific month, so for example, February, you can drill down onto specific days during that month, and if you want to drill down onto a specific day, you can drill down again into specific hours, and even going a little bit further. So let's see what he's doing at 10 o'clock a.m. You can actually see which types of content he was viewing, for how long, and the number of page views as well. So you can get really specific with this information, and that's really nice for understanding kind of individual user challenges. Okay, so now we're going to go into the usability section. So we'll focus on this search optimization report. So this is a really powerful report because I showed you the adoption report previously. So that was a really high-level overview. But usability is actually how you can improve adoption. So this is the action that we talk about when we talk about actionable metrics. So we improve adoption by actually improving usability. So let's look at, for example, if the user experience isn't nice, then we can really kind of understand that they're not going to use SharePoint as much. So by trying to improve this user experience, we can actually improve adoption at the same time. And so the key here, we talked about this, previously, is search. So if they can't find what they're looking for in the portal, then that's just simply not a good use of their time. Okay, so we'll go ahead and we can see here on this left-hand side all of these different search key phrases. keywords that they search for. So for example, we can select holidays, and you can see again that the information is dynamic. You can see that there were a number of 86 searches for holidays. And you can see, of course, maybe this peaked during a specific amount of time during the year, close to the holidays. So then you can know that if you aren't providing enough content on this, you can provide more content during this specific time of the year on holidays. You can also click and see the results clicks out of searches. So you can see that people only clicked 8.1% out of the entire time they searched for this keyword. So from that, you can really infer that maybe they're not really getting what they need. Maybe they're not finding the content that they need, and so maybe you need to leverage this content. So for example, maybe you need to improve your search schema, your search queries, or simply provide content that's missing. So you could even find keywords, for example, that have a very, very high number of searches but a really low result of clicks, and that's simply because the content is missing, and that really gives you an idea of what kind of content your users are really looking for in the portal. And if they're not able to find it, then that's really simple. You can just put some of that nice content in the portal, and maybe even link it on a home page and say, hey guys, you can find this, this, and this on the home page here. And you can also see these trends over time, like I mentioned to you before. So you can see the percent of failed searches by date and the average of click search results positioned by date as well. So that's a really nice metric that really allows you to kind of take that action that we're talking about when we talk about actionable metrics with SharePoint adoption. All right. So just one quick other thing that I want to share with you guys. Okay. So we also have this additional customized dashboard that we prepared for one of our customers, and it can easily be embedded. Here you can see it's embedded in any kind of SharePoint site, so it's actually embedded within SharePoint. And this is really useful for site owners. So kind of giving these site owners very practical information on what they can do to improve their specific SharePoint sites. So for example, we kind of broke this up into very specific categories as well, which we thought would be most interesting for site owners. So you can see we broke it up into site adoption is this first category, and you have all these kinds of tips on the left-hand side, and it will show you, your insights for that day. So for example, 101 new visitors in the last 7 days. And you can see that this actually went down from the previous week, so you can kind of say, okay, what can I do to improve that? So that's where you can look at these very easy to consume tips. So adding links from other sites to your site, adding a promotional banner for your content on other sites as well. And then you can actually see on the right-hand side a specific case study. So you can see that a customer of ours detected that only 45% of permitted users accessed the site, and they were able to improve user adoption by 86% by promoting the site on these kind of main sites in the portal. So you have these kinds of examples as you scroll down, going through engagement and productivity, and lots of tips and lots of nice things to help. So content contributions as well, site usability, what we just talked about, so these failed searches. So a lot of tips on site usability. So checking the top search phrases table to understand what types of information visitors are seeking and what content can't easily be found. Mobile compatibility, that's a big one. Many people in organizations now are accessing their information from various types of devices, so mobile, tablet, as well as desktop as well. But the mobile compatibility is really important to make sure that these people are getting the right information when they enter the portal through their mobile device. And finally, site resources, so optimizing space and supporting a portal migration, which is what I kind of touched on previously, but we won't go into too much detail on that since today's webinar is dedicated more towards adoption. But I just wanted to show you this kind of really nice, easy to consume report that can be available to all site owners and can really kind of empower these site owners to go in and make these actionable changes based on these tips and based on these case studies. All right. So that's about all the time we have for today. So I'll go ahead and see if we have any questions available. Um, and I'll give you guys just a few seconds to see if you have any questions at this time. Okay, so I've got just a first question coming in from John. So is there a trial available for Cardiolog SaaS to try out on your own? So the answer to that is yes. We do have a 7-day trial available for Cardiolog Analytics SaaS. So if you are interested, you can simply just send a quick chat in the chat box, and I'll send you any kind of information that you need. Another question, is there a trial also for the on-prem version? To that is yes. So we do provide a 30-day trial for the on-prem version. You can send a quick chat to me as well about that, or you can visit our website at www.interlock.com. And you can also, if you're interested in seeing any of these metrics in more in-depth, we didn't have too much time today, but if you'd like to see anything more in-depth, the SaaS solution more in-depth, the on-prem solution more in-depth, we will be happy to provide a personal demo as well. I also would like to invite you to join our readers at blog.interlock.com. We're providing a lot of interesting blog pieces around SharePoint, engagement, adoption, productivity, things like that. So if you're ever interested in reading more about these topics, a great resource is our blog. All right, let's see if we've got any more questions coming in. Okay, so it looks like we're just about out of time, but we'll get to all of these questions, and if anyone has any more questions, feel free to email us at info@interlock.com. And if we didn't get to your questions today, we will be answering them by email just after this webinar is over, so be on the lookout for that, and be out on the lookout for a recording as well. So thanks everyone for joining today. Have a great day. Thanks.